video, we're going to be looking at two albums, and it'll be down to you to decide which one is better. The Last Command by W.A.S.P or Come Out and Play by Twisted Sister, and we're going to start right now. The Last Command is the second album by W.A.S.P released in 1985. W.A.S.P's self-titled debut was an amazing album, and it features some true classics of 80s heavy metal. But the follow-up, The Last Command, somehow manages to be even better. The basis here is pretty much the same. Classic heavy metal energy and power, complemented by raw vocals and heavy riffs at the forefront and totally over-the-top lyrics. By this time around, the production and songwriting is less raw and heavy, which in turn gives some more variety in the songwriting, but also lets the magnificent melodies stand out more than on the debut. This is apparent from the melodic balladish, though it totally explodes during the chorus opening track, Wild Child, which is one of the album's definite highlights. Once again, there is also great variation to be found in the songwriting while keeping the power and feeling high. You have songs like Ball Crusher, Sex Drive, and Running Wild in the Streets, which are all pretty fast and excellent sounding as well, especially later with its anthemic chorus and awesome riffs. Then there is some mid-paced stuff like the melodic track and the atmospheric groovy Widowmaker. And another ballad is to be found on this album entitled Cries in the Night. It's no Sleeping in the Fire, but pretty damn good on its own. Outstanding factors are great chorus and solo, but it totally works on all levels really. The album is totally awesome, although with just one exception, that being Jack Action. As already mentioned, the simplistic and catchy riff work is pretty similar to Judas Priest, You Got Another Thing Coming, but somehow they don't manage to make it work. The vocal lines here are pretty average, and the song comes off as another rather forgettable, at least when compared to songs like Wild Child, which also brings us to the large amount of highlights found here. As I've mentioned, Wild Child is one of the definite highs, so is Fistful of Diamonds, with one of their most dead on choruses ever and some crazy soloing. Blinding Texas is the ultimate drinking song and is insanely catchy. And finally, the second W.A.S.P, probably the second best song that they've done ever, second to Helion, is The Last Command. The melodic verses, the anthemic overall chorus, the powerful lyrics, it captures the essence of heavy metal like nothing else. The remastered version of the album features a load of bonus tracks, some of them to be precise. First off, we have an excellent cover of Mississippi Queen, followed by a savage, wicked speed metal tune very much in the vein of Show No Mercy off the debut. The rest is all live stuff, and while the performances and are all solid and the mixing is very weak, the guitars are way too slow, but despite all that, it's still pretty fun. Come On brings more melody in the mix, while the rawness is still there. It's not as much as a key factor it was on the debut, which, like I said, makes more room for spectacular songwriting. Definitely the best of their party metal era, consisting of the first three. If you like more traditional kind of heavy metal, then this is definitely a must-have. Now we're going to switch gears to Come Out and Play by Twisted Sister. So this album was also released in 1985. Most people probably remember and associate Twisted Sister with the whole 1980s glam metal scene and early MTV, and for good reason. But where glam metal bands at the time tend to sound rather like each other, not to mention looking incredibly ridiculous, Twisted Sister looked the part intentionally and played more of a heavy metal sound. Sure, the Sister had a few commercial sound hits like I'm Me, or The Smash It, We're Not Gonna Take It, but other tracks on their albums were made up of heavy hitters, and some even flowing towards extreme metal sound. So also in 1985, Twisted Sister's fourth album was due, and it followed the massive success of the band's third album, Stay Hungry. It's probably safe to say that the label, as well as fans and critics, put some great pressure on the band to prove themselves. So this album, which sounds a lot more polished than all the other releases earlier, produced by then current longtime Scorpions producer Dieter Dierks, The album sounds quite reminiscent to Scorpion's hit album Love at First Sting, while the production is a lot cleaner, sometimes too clean, but also clearer sounding on the upside. The band's music hasn't really changed. In fact, I wouldn't say that this album overall harder than its predecessor in terms of heavy metal songs. The album's music covers a few different areas, ranging from the speed metal-esque tracks to ballads to the classic comical style of Twisted Sister. The opening and also title track starts off with a creepy intro, which is a direct reference from the movie Warriors, urging Twisted Sister rather than the Warriors to come out and play. And boom, D. Snyder does a triple twisted, pun intended, scream before the song blasts out in high speed. As an opening track, it's not far from the style that the previous album's opener title track was, but slightly heavier and faster this time round. The band then covers different grounds, ranging from both a sing-along and a shout-along tracks. The first few tracks to cozy ballads, I Believe in You, in New Panthers, On the Streets. There's really something for every Twisted fan to be found on here, if the new production style can be accepted. Compared to the band's earlier albums, this one feels more musical in terms of technicality. The band as a whole has really improved as far as their playing goes, with AJ Perry's drum sounding a lot more fun, Eddie Ojeda's solos blistering more than ever, most of all vocalist D. Snyder's great voice. This album is well worth checking out for these vocals alone, because he has never shined this bright anywhere else, and he really proved his chops on this one. Lyrically though, it's kind of hit and miss. The more serious tone tunes tend to have good and thoughtful lyrics, especially Out in the Streets being in mind. Some of the other tracks tend to have that I wanna rock feeling to them, but not to be taken too seriously. So overall, this album is very good and at the same time underrated. It definitely differs in production value if the old albums are to be taken into consideration, and to me this is Twisted Sister at their peak, whether it's to do with the songs or their live performances. With collections with songs like this which are strong and powerful, this album should be held as something bigger, and it's definitely for Twisted Sister fans and even metal fans overall to enjoy. So once again, the highlights of this album are Come Out and Play, This Fire Still Burns, Out on the Streets, and King of Fools. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.